Let me once again join my colleagues in thanking you, our friends and partners, especially those that have consistently supported the Quarterly Business Forum. We had said nearly 2 years ago that perhaps the most crucial component of our economic policy is our partnership with the private sector. And this is not merely ideological or rhetorical, it's simply the only way to go. Our 2018 budget is barely 9 trillion naira. And if you add the budgets of the 36 states, you may probably add another 12 to 15 trillion. This is barely 10% of GDP. Meanwhile, the private sector investment in the economy is in the order of 60 to 70% of GDP. So how do we plan when most of our economy is not factored in? I think our relationship with the private sector is an existential one. It's not merely just because it sounds nice. It's the only way to go. This is why practically in every detail of the implementation of our economic recovery and growth plan, we've ensured a rigorous process of engagement with the private sector. Last week, as has been said, I was on a roadshow with our technology and innovation companies to the Silicon Valley and to Hollywood with our entertainment and creativity entrepreneurs. And I went along with several regulators, investors, and of course the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, the NIPC GM, the NEPC DG, NICTA, etc. I think it was helpful, and one of the takeaways I had from there was that it was particularly helpful that government was there shoulder to shoulder with the private sector. For many investors, and this is what was repeated to me several times, it sent a strong signal to them of our commitment and seriousness to investments in technology and creativity. Just last month, we established the Presidential Advisory Group on Technology and Creativity, which is constituted largely of innovators, artists, and relevant federal government ministries and agencies. The advisory group is to develop policy on these major sectors of our economy that have long been ignored. I think the point, to be made is that we're really committed to ensuring every step of the way we take that the private sector is with us, as they say, lockstep with us. They are with us on it so that we understand exactly what the requirements of the private sector are, and we let the private sector lead as much as is possible while we try and create the environment that would work. The development of our policies around exports have also taken the same route. At the Industrial and Competitiveness Council, which I have the privilege of chairing, with 2 vice chairs, that is the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and Alhaji Dangote, who represents the private sector. We have dedicated groups looking at a variety of issues that are important to our export strategies. Our trade policy motives are to use the appropriate tools and instruments to strengthen the export potential within the economy and exporters who add value to the goods, and then to apply incentives that promote and support investments and exporters who add value to goods. The reinstatement, of the export expansion grant and also the successful implementation of that grant is critical, in my view, to growing our non-oil exports. We anticipate that with the use of technology, we will significantly improve the process of managing the scheme, and that will also introduce some transparency. So we're really committed to the reinstatement, and we're committed to a successful implementation, and I think we're going about it the right way by a step-by-step approach and also trying to use technology. With respect to the African Continental Free Trade Area, there are clearly huge gains for us, no question at all. The rest of Africa also naturally see the enormous advantage of Nigeria's participation. Everybody's waiting for us, naturally. And that's because they see a huge market, they see the advantages of our being there. But we must be sure to get the best possible terms for Nigerian trade and commerce. Our experiences with dumping, with transshipment, and other injurious trade practices make it obvious to us that our market could be a real target, our local manufacturing could become unprofitable, and agricultural advances could be reversed. Consequently, we have embarked on an extensive consultation, and I think Ambassador Sakwe went into great detail about that, with trade, with commerce, and professional groups, and organized labor across the 6 geopolitical zones to get a clearer sense of their concerns as we navigate the process of signing the treaty. I think the general results favor engagement, but the concerns remain around improving the domestic environment or greater competitiveness, especially concerns around power supply and investment in trade infrastructure. I don't think I could make a more eloquent case than the Honourable Minister of Power has just made. Because while noting, the various, studies, and I think Engineer Ibrahim Usman mentioned some of the studies that he would like to see done, or that man would like to see done. I think that those studies are important. I think those kinds of background investigation as to what works and what doesn't work, what's going on with industry and all that, what will the impact be on industry. I think those concerns are very crucial, and many of them are being done already. But it's my sense that we must be careful not to give the impression that these are minimum preconditions for engagement with the process. I think we must be careful not to give it, because the question, of course, has been asked is, when will we be ready? What is the opportunity cost of not engaging now? I think these are some of the concerns that we must have. We must fix this car, as I've said in the past, while the engine is running. We're not going to wait. You can't, the way things are going, the only way to do it is to fix it, is to fix the car while the engine is running. You can't say, there's just no time for us to say, okay, let's wait, take down the entire car, dismember it, and put it back again just to repair it. I think this is the time to go ahead and do something about it while we are taking into account all of the issues that have been raised and making sure that we're negotiating well. I think the point was also made very well about the participation of Ambassador Sakwe and the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. For the very first time, Nigeria is actually engaged, and we are leading the engagement, especially at the AU. This is something that has never happened in the past. In the past, we found treaties that were negotiated and signed. Nobody knew who negotiated them. Nobody knew how they were done. Nobody knew what was going on. I have been involved, I worked as advisor to the Attorney General many years ago in the Federal Ministry of Justice. And one of the critical things, because we then gathered all our treaties. In fact, I don't know whether you ever came across a document, a series of publications called Nigeria's Treaties in Force from 1990. And I think there were treaties in force up to 1990, beg your pardon, from independence to 1990, 10 volumes. I actually edited those volumes, the 10 volumes. All of those volumes, nobody knew who negotiated them. We just simply signed. For the first time, we have an office that is where we have trained negotiators. And that's how come we were at the forefront of this particular negotiation with Ambassador Sakwe. We're actually going to go and poach Ambassador Sakwe from the WTO and brought him to come and man that office. Because Nigeria is today, our position in Africa, we're not only the largest economy, we also want to be the leader. Not just being a large economy, we want to be the leader in innovation, we want to be the leader in business, in industry, we want to be the leaders. And to do so, we have to have the right people. They must be competent, they must be ready to work with us, and then they must also understand the business environment well. So I think we have a big advantage in having our own negotiators leading the charge here. I think there's a major advantage. I don't think we should look at it in any other way. Otherwise, we'll compromise the gains that we have made. If we're the ones negotiating, the terms are better for us. We're leading the negotiations. It's better for us than for us to sit back and watch other people do the negotiations when eventually we might end up signing. I also must mention the difference, especially talking about infrastructure, the difference that this administration brings to this whole question of how to deal with infrastructure. One of the president's commitments, and I think for him it's a passion for him, and that is getting infrastructure done. And the one instruction he's given about infrastructure is that we must complete what is important to complete. All of the projects that are important that have been abandoned must first be completed before we start anything new. So not only are we investing more than ever before in infrastructure, in the history of this country, the greatest amount of money, the largest amount of money have been invested in infrastructure today. But we're also ensuring that we complete the projects. Look at the Kaduna to Abuja road, that rail, the railway, beg your pardon. It started many, many years ago, but we concluded it when we came, we finished with it. Abuja Light Rail. Abuja Light Rail started in 2007. It was stalled in 2010. The whole point of the Abuja Light Rail was to meet the Commonwealth Games in 2014. That's why it was started. It was abandoned. We just completed it in 2018. Although our opponents criticize us, they say we are shameless for even completing the project. I mean, sometimes that, frankly, sometimes it's very difficult to understand where, people are coming from. I think it's very important that, it's almost a thing with us that we must go and flag off a project or do a groundbreaking ceremony. But about completing it, we don't really care very much, whether it's ever completed or it's not completed. But I think that we are really committed to the idea of ensuring that infrastructure projects are taken seriously and that they are completed. Look at the Mambila Hydro, 40 years old in planning, 40 years. And, we're now, at least now budgeted for it, we're raising the capital for it from the Chinese and all of that. On the investment side, we're working hard to create an environment that is attractive to long-term investments in particular. In addition to the progress that we're making, strengthening ease of doing business, the reforms around incentives available to investors have also been undertaken, and we're reviewing the Pioneer Status Incentive Scheme, and that's been done by the NIPC. We just heard that. The review so far has seen the inclusion of 27 new eligible industries, and now provides for a review of the scheme every 2 years. So every 2 years, the scheme will also be reviewed. We are committed to supporting investors who themselves have shown commitment to being in this economy. To grow additional investments, we're also developing a systematic, data-driven approach towards engaging with international trade partners, which will ensure that we are focused in our approach to entering bilateral trade agreements and that we realize maximum returns from this. The Executive Secretary of the NIPC has been directed by the Economic Management Team to develop a clear plan with identified trade partners, and we will share our targeted approach with the private sector as we progress in this regard. Our focus is to create a strong economy that's friendly to investment, that's conducive for growth, and that's resilient to shocks. I'm sure that all of us, and again, I must commend your commitment to this process, to the Quarterly Business Forum, and hope that you will stick with us in ensuring that all of these issues that have been raised, all of the concerns that have been raised, are worked through. I think, as with everything, follow-up is important. As with everything, implementation is important. And I think that one of the best things that's happened is that the private sector is engaged, and they're keeping us on our toes and ensuring that we do what it is that we said we're going to do. And I hope that you will also play your own part in doing what it is that you said you will do. Thank you very much.